So I kind of was trying to tease out some of the things that were different, that made the experience so enjoyable for me. The first was that each shift started, okay,
Sorry about that.
started and ended with everybody gathering in front of the altar, the little altar in the kitchen, and reading a section from the Tenzo Kyoko, the instructions to the Zen cook. So we all started in the same place. And on some level it was like taking a vow, this is why we're here. Then everyone worked in silence, except for unless you had, you know, something you needed to convey information. Then you talk quietly, no chit chat. And even more profoundly, nobody banged pans together. You know, if you're taking a frying pan out, you take it up quietly, so there wasn't this cacophony of, it was a very quiet environment. The other part was that everybody seemed to be there on purpose, you know, not like I needed a job. It was, here I am, yes, I'm here doing this work, and we all wanted to be there, and we wanted to do the job to the best of our ability. That's a pretty rare occurrence in the quote real world. And then this is a small thing, but it had a big effect on me. Everybody in the kitchen, whenever you weren't doing anything or you're waiting for instructions, you just go back to the dish area. There was no dishwasher, which was used to, in most kitchens, as a little mat on the totem pole. It was like everybody was using all the dishes. So if you were not doing anything, you would wash dishes or put them away, because the dishes were something that we all needed. And that made a big difference in my mind. I don't know if it did to other people, but those kinds of things made it so we all felt like we were working on a common goal. And this is something that really struck me in one of the days when we were reading that Tenzo Kyokon. It said, to serve the community. When you think about serving the community, it's like literally serving the community. It really struck me. And that's kind of what we were all doing. And there was a sense of respect for our fellow workers, and there was a lot of joy in the work we were doing. And at the end of the shift, every shift, I just felt like calm and happy, and like I'd been part of something that made good use of my energy. I really liked being there. So it seemed to me for the culmination of the week, all during the week, we're chopping, and making salads and serving it, and you know, we generated leftovers and vegetables that didn't get used. So at the end of the day, everybody put them together and made this array of just beautiful salads. One of the most beautiful salads that I had was Rachel made some roasted beets in a wonderful vinaigrette with some I think capers on it, and then surrounded by a really beautiful potato salad. And it was just like white and red, but all of the salads, you know, they just looked like eco salad. They were really beautiful. Like people were able to create something delicious and beautiful in that environment. And then even better, we put them out on the long butcher block in the kitchen, like not on the serving table. Everybody came into the kitchen with their little Tupperware, getting ready to go on the road. And they took some salads, and I don't know if they were like me, but I'm eating them on the way home. They were so delicious. They were really good. So the kitchen at Tassajara has always had a special significance for me. I've loved cooking ever since I was a little kid. And many years ago when I was taking a yoga class, and my yoga teacher in Santa Rosa had Ed Brand come and do a cooking demonstration at her house. And I was not Zen then at all, but I really liked the way he talked, and I liked what he said. So that was my first experience. So kind of followed him over the years and went to, and the way he cooks is probably primarily because he worked in the kitchen at Tassajara, and he was a Tenzo there. So he was a Zen cook. That's how he became a cook, is by following Zen practices. So I used to go to Green Gulch, and he had workshops and half-day sittings and stuff. So, you know, he was somebody that always really spoke to me for some reason, and I liked his connection to food. So back in 2007, for my birthday, my daughter took me to see his movie, How to Cook Your Life. It was playing in Berkeley, and we went to see it, and it really was. It had a lot of things in it that have stuck with me over the years and were really meaningful. I've watched the movie a couple times since I got back from Tassajara, And most of it was filmed at Tassajara and some monastery in Austria, I think, but mostly, you know, it's just where we come from. I knew exactly what it was like to be there. So a lot of his teachings, and he says a lot of the same things in this book, another book that I've had for many years, Tomato Blessings and Radish Teachings, Recipes and Reflections. And he'll have like a little small, oh, sorry, I'm not showing it to you guys. Anyway, here, can you see it? Okay, Tomato Blessings and Radish Teachings. And it's set up so that there'll be a little kind of a Zen observation, something that, you know, that he's been thinking about. And then he'll give you some good recipes. So, you know, it's a good cookbook besides the things that go along with it. So I don't know what it is about him, but his way of cooking has become for me, it's like on some level I think of my cooking and my practice as being like Zen calisthenics. I get to do it 3 times a day, and it kind of strengthens my muscles. It gives me a way to literally practice what I'm doing. And I got that from Zen, from Ed Brown, and I think he's really irreverent and funny, and there's something about the way he talks that speaks to me, because I'm a little irreverent. I'm sorry, I am. So today I want to talk on a few of the lessons I learned from him and from those 2 sources. The first thing is the essence of cooking as Zen practice is that I begin my time in the kitchen with an attitude of joy and willingness and mindfulness. From what I see, it seems like there's most people, or a good percentage of people, they consider cooking to be like, oh my God, I gotta put another meal on the table, and it's like something that is a chore, it's kind of boring, and there's something really fun that they want to do that making dinner is keeping them from. And you know, there's a lot of labor-saving packaged things that people get because they just don't want to have to do the boring work of cooking. And the other thing that people do is they do something else while they're cooking, like watch TV or listen to the radio. I do it. I put my headset on it and I do it. I'm trying to not do it. Rachel and I made an agreement that, you know, like I try to do it 1 meal a day. We burn a candle while we're cooking and don't listen to anything. We say, here I am. I mean, like, literally. That's what I'm gonna do. But, you know, it's like, part of it is like in the void. It's like, if I'm gonna do something boring, I might as well be entertained while I'm doing it. So, a Zen cook, you know, one of the things from the Tassajara kitchen and from Ed Brown is just you say yes to the task. You say, here I am. I'm going to do it. I'm willingly here, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Like Suzuki Roshi says, when you wash the rice, wash the rice. With this attitude, when I come to my cooking this way, I can look at the shapes and the colors and the smells and the textures, and it's almost too much, you know? I mean, it's like, this is just beautiful, and I really enjoy it. And, you know, it's like the best of Zen is you can get really very happy from smaller and smaller things, you know? So cooking is a way to do that, especially like right now with all these beautiful seasonal things like peaches and cherries, you know? I mean, who wouldn't want to be around those things and turn them into something delicious? I mean, already delicious, but then the other thing that I learned from a lot of it from Ed Brown is how to do a task efficiently. You know, when you're paying attention, you say, okay, I'm not just going to flail around in here. I'm going to make how I do the task a part of it too. It's not just the product. It's like every step that I take is going to kind of respect the ingredients, respect the process, respect your tools. And when I can do that, I give my whole concentration to the task. It almost gets to a place where my body's doing it. And so I feel like one of the things that was really, really grabbed me from Tomato Blessings and Radish Teachings, that Ed Brown says, our bodies are made to do things, to stand, walk, sit, chop wood, carry water, peel potatoes, putter about in the shop or garden. Our hands specifically love to do things. Knead bread, caress cheeks, dig with a shovel, fiddle with wiring, pluck guitar strings. I didn't always understand how eager my hands were to work until they met bread dough, and later sharp knives. I just got a flavor last week. Oh my God, I love it. Hands have amazing intelligence, so while they are cutting, the eyes do not necessarily have to be involved. About a third of the sensory neurons running from the body to the brain come from the hands, and about a third of the motor neurons spreading from the brain to the body go to the hands. That's a tremendous amount of potential intelligence, which you activate by allowing your hands to feel out what to do instead of telling them what to do. Over time, you can learn to trust that your hands know really well how to be hands. Letting your hands find out how to be hands is vitally important. It's a form of liberation. Then they can resume their natural responsiveness to things, and with it, their energy, joy, and vitality. Their inherent love and helpfulness emerges. When the hands are happy, that can make a being pretty happy too. I think I've known this all my life. Like, I think I was maybe 10 years old, and I was cooking and knitting for some reason. I must have known that, and I continued to do that all my life. And I talk with my hands a lot. I can't keep my hands still. My children make fun of me. But I find that when my hands are doing something, I'm a lot happier and calmer. Another thing that I learned from Ed Brown and from being a cook is the concept of mise en place. And the definition of mise en place is a culinary process in which ingredients are prepared and organized before cooking. Thomas Keller, the renowned chef in St. Helena, I think, French Laundry, said, mise en place is my religion. So I can understand what he's saying. So before I start cooking, I read the recipe and I think about what I'm going to be doing. I say, I'm here on purpose, you know, it's not just something I'm doing on the way to something else. I organize what I'm doing. I look at the timing. I get everything ready. And it helps me also because I feel like there's a sense of kindness and compassion for future Ellen who's going to be making the thing. And it's like, here Ellen, I'm going to give you all the help you're going to need so you can succeed. So when Ellen really goes to do it, there's not like these things that go wrong, you know, oh God, I needed that, or, I mean, that happens sometimes, but mise en place allows you to do it with joy and efficiency. Thank you, Thomas Keller. Then I think about who's going to be eating the food and how to make the food most appealing to them. One of the things I learned at Tassajara, but I think it's also a Zen principle, is making good use of leftovers. You don't always have to eat really fancy food. And to treat even the humblest ingredients like leftover oatmeal or breadcrumbs and vegetable trimmings with respect. They can have a new life as, you know, in a new dish, or you can give them to the chickens. They're wonderful, you know, my chickens are really happy. Or worms, or you can put them in the compost. And it gives you a sense that there's more than enough. And when you have that feeling, it enhances generosity, the feeling of generosity. And then also I think about who's going to be enjoying the food, and the idea is of cooking as a way to serve the community. And I'm really grateful that I have cooking, because I don't know, I feel like I'm a real geek, and I often don't know how to relate to people or how to let them know that I appreciate them or that I care about them. But if you cook, you can give them something, you know. I'm really known for giving, everybody that comes to my house goes away with a jar of jelly, you know, or a can of tomatoes or something. It's like a way to tell people that you care about them. It's kind of risk-free. And it works for me. But if I didn't have that, I don't know how else I would do it. So, okay, good. I'll talk faster. So here's another concept that's really important to think of how to cook the right. And it's even more relevant today after I just came from the Tassajara kitchen. Ed Brown says, in our meditation tradition, we have a custom for which for many years I have found peculiar, offering food to Buddha. Before breakfast and lunch, the cooks made up a small tray of food. In its way, it's rather cute, suggestive of dollhouse cuisine. Food is put delicately into each little dish, and then a miniature spoon and chopsticks are set ready to use. When I was cooking, I found this rather annoying. Wasn't I busy enough serving food to the community without having to serve food to someone who's not even going to eat it? You have to be kidding, whatever is the point. Later, when I collected the uneaten food, the Buddha didn't say anything about liking this or not liking that. No, love the seasoning on the carrots. No, the Buddha just goes on sitting there completely unconcerned. Good food, the Buddha doesn't praise. Bad food, the Buddha doesn't complain about. Not a word escapes his lips, just as no food escapes his bowl. Perhaps 25 years later, it occurred to me that serving food to Buddha in this fashion is utterly profound. This is the way to cook. Cook the food and serve it. Bow and depart. You've done your part. Offer what you have to offer, let go and walk away. That's the end of it. How the guests receive it is up to them. So when I rewatched this part of the movie after being at Tassajara and seeing that little altar, it was even more relevant. In the movie, it showed a monk taking the offering out of the Tassajara kitchen and walking up to the stone zendo, which is distance away. And they would be doing that after meal chant, you know, some kind of chant that was, you could hear it, it was echoing in the valley, and there were drums, and it just seemed like a really, had tremendous, the offering had tremendous dignity and significance for me. And this model, offering what I have to offer and walking away, I've used it for many years, and it was so good to be reminded of it. And finally, I want to talk about a cooking experience I had recently. I have had, did you say wrong? Okay, anyway, I guess it cuts me out. Anyway, I have a friend of mine gave me a couple of shrubs a few years ago, red currant, Ribes rubrum, which is a botanist. And I really like the plants, I think they're beautiful, and they have these red berries that come out, they've come out in the last month. Just, it looks like a Christmas tree. It looks like, I'll put this up here. Can you see it? How do I get people to see it? Can you guys see it? Anyway, it's just beautiful. And it's a really good plant, because it's really pretty and everybody likes it, and birds like the berries, and the flowers are good for bees. And I've done, I took cuttings of it and gave them to people, and I'm gonna have a cuttings workshop at the end of this month and do it again, because it's a great pollinator plant, great pollinator plant. Berries are fine. A friend of mine, and I had never had any experience with them, and my friend Hannah came over the other day, and she says, oh my goodness, those are wonderful, you have red currants. And she was born and raised in Germany, and that was a big part of her growing up, and they made cakes and jellies and stuff out of them. And so it prompted me to feel like that was something that I wanted to do. So last weekend, I got my 5-gallon bucket, and luckily they grow in shade, sitting on my 5-gallon bucket, and I'm picking these things, and it's just tactily, again, with the hands. They feel your hand. They're warm. They just feel beautiful. And when you pick them, there's no way that you can get them all. They come off in your hand, and some of them go on the ground, so birds get them. And some of them are stay on the plant, so birds get them. And, it's just a really wonderful experience. And in the meantime, you get to look at this beautiful plant. And when I was talking to Hannah about it, she grew up picking currants, and her hands know how to do it, and she's about my age, and it's like, this is something that her hands grew up picking red currants, which is very cool. So over the weekend, we made red currant jelly, and I'm gonna pass it around because everybody should see it. Can you see how, you can't really see, the light goes through it. You guys wanna look at it? Anyway, it was really wonderful.
Oh, yeah, if you hold it up to the light. It's amazing.
And it tastes really good, and we had it on warm biscuits, and it was just such a wonderful experience. But it reminded me of, like, for me, I grew up canning, and canning is like the zen of cooking for me. It's like everything you do, because you're doing a repetitive process. Sometimes, like, you've got a whole barrel of apples, and you've got to turn them into applesauce. So the mise en place, you can't fool around. You can't be sloppy in how you do it. You say, this is how these apples want to be prepared, and you get into your body knows how to do it. Your mind can take a step back. And for somebody I've probably been canning for 50 years. My body knows how to do it. I can go into a place and I got my old, well-used equipment, and I think my canner I've had for 25 years and still holds up. You know, I go through that process, and it has connections to the past. You know, I remember growing up in my family in Montana, they don't eat fresh fruits and vegetables there. Everything that they do, you go out and when there's fruit, and, you know, cheap in the summer, you can it. And my sisters and my mother and I, we'd spend the whole summer, I remember, in the kitchen, and we would be canning it. We'd be singing Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Joan Baez songs, and Harry Belafonte songs, and church songs, and the steam would be coming out of the kettles, you know, and the empty jars and how they shone, and then when you put things in, and then you take a jar of fresh peaches out in February in Montana winters. It was like, it reminded you, you know, of the bounty of the summer. And I was thinking of it the other day. I pulled out a jar that said Peach Jam 2022. And it just reminded me that last year, at this time, or during the summer, my husband Roger he felt like he said this to people, you only get a finite number of peach seasons in your life. So this peach season, make a pig of yourself, you know, and he was very careful. He didn't usually do that, but he'd go to the farm market every Sunday and get peaches and bring them home. So, you know, last year he was dying of brain cancer, and his friends would come and visit, and I made it a point of, because I had a lot of peaches, I was always canning peaches, and the smell of them, and people would come and they'd see them bubbling, and they'd see the process, and then they'd taste the peach jam, and then I would send it home with everybody. So now they're opening them, and it reminds them of Roger. So, you know, that was a wonderful memory, and I was really grateful that I had that, and have those wonderful stories. So anyway, that's kind of what I have to say, and I'm glad for the opportunity. I'm so glad Chris is talking about this right now. Just, you know, it just is like, this makes Zen so real and part of my life. And I want to thank Ed Brown and Deborah Madison and my mother and all my cooking ancestors for this gift. That's what I have to say. And I have a couple questions. We have how much time?
15 minutes? No, maybe a little bit. Yeah, and then that would still leave 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, good, you have the questions.
2 questions. What role does cooking play in your Zen practice, and how does your Zen practice influence how you cook? Either or one or the other or both?
So are you gonna do the breakout rooms, Reg?
I can do it, or we can do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I was hoping to hear you.
Next week. You have to come back next week.
Oh, I didn't understand that. I didn't either. I
Oh.
thought you were both gonna talk.
Well, we're
How
both-
do you break out? How do you break out?
You are both gonna talk.
Oh.
Yes.
Down here it says breakout. So 2 or 3 people in the group or?
Yeah, they're gonna break